Hi, readers. Great to see you. It's Miss A here. I'm excited to read with you today. We are going to read another book from our Writing from Life series with Tomie Depaola today. Let's check out our target before we begin. I will identify elements that make an author's work recognizable across multiple books. What are elements, readers? I can identify elements. That's right. Elements are parts or things, just like traits. We use traits and things to describe someone or something. Elements are pieces or parts that you put together to make something. So we are going to identify the pieces or parts that make an author's work recognizable to our eyes across multiple books. So for example, how is it that you know both of these books that you see on your screen right now are written by Tomie Depaola? I want you to think about that. How are they both recognizable, and how can you look at them and go, oh, I can tell Tomie Depaola is the author of both of those texts. So today we are going to read Bill and Pete Go Down the Nile. The last book we read together was Bill and Pete. We were introduced to the characters Bill and Pete. So today we are going to go down the Nile with Bill and Pete, which I remember my background knowledge from last time we read together. The Nile is a river in Egypt. So I already know from my connection to the first Bill and Pete that the setting I'm predicting of this text will probably be in Egypt on the Nile River. What genre do you think this book is? Use what you know from our last Bill and Pete to make a really smart prediction. What genre do you think this book is, and why? What do you think? That's what I think too. I think this is a fiction text because we know that animals can't talk. And if I look at the front cover, I see animals with smiles and things that are telling me they're probably going to talk. And I'm also connecting to the first Bill and Pete when I knew it was fiction because there were talking animals. Such smart tools to make those predictions. Okay, so before we begin, I want you to think, what do you already know about Tomie Depaola books? We have read Bill and Pete, and we've read Straganona before. So both of these are texts written by Tomie Depaola that we've read before. And here's a couple more examples I found in my house that Tomie Depaola has written. So just by looking at these without even opening them, I can tell the author is Tomie Depaola. They look very different from this. They look very different from this text. So what do you notice that Tomie Depaola always does in his texts? Or what do you notice he maybe often or usually does in his texts? I'm noticing just by looking at the pictures and illustrations and cover, he often uses pink as one of his main colors. Did you notice that as a background color? I also notice, and this is one thing I love about him, his illustrations are really simple. So let's read Bill and Pete Go Down the Nile together today and see if you notice any more connections from the last Bill and Pete and from Straganona. What are things that you notice this author does? What are elements that he has chosen to include or leave out with the words he uses, the way he organizes his text, how they look, the illustrations? I want you to just tune in and zoom in on what are elements and parts that Tomie Depaola specifically chooses to do or not do as a writer that make his work recognizable. So the second you look at it, the second you start reading it, your brain goes, oh, ding, 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 ding. That's a Tomie Depaola book.
Our final book that I chose by Tomie Depaola, and this is a sequel to the book Bill and Pete, which we just read, is over there. But Bill and Pete, a sequel means it's a book that comes after. Okay, so you read Bill and Pete first. Now this one's called Bill and Pete Go Down the Nile. And do you remember that the Nile is in Egypt? It's a big river, okay? And again, we're going to think about some of the things. You're going to actually see a couple of the same characters from the other book. That's what's nice about sequels. It's easier to understand because you're familiar with a lot of the characters. Okay, so something else happens, a little bit of a problem, and they help to solve it. Okay, so let's read to see what the problem is in the story. Oops, I think I skipped the page. Here we go. Tomorrow was the first day of school, and William Everett Crocodile, who was called Bill, and his friend Pete, who was his toothbrush, were getting ready. Don't forget your new pencil box, Bill, said Mama, and your new lunchbox, said Pete. It will be so nice to see Miss Ibis again, Mama, said Bill. I wonder what you'll learn this year, said Mama. And it says tomorrow, the first day of school. So now they're going back to school. The next morning, after kissing Mama goodbye, Bill and Pete started out for school. It was fun to see all the other little crocodiles again. See them all, and they have birds, right? And there's Pete, Bill and Pete. Now, class, said Miss Ibis, we are going to start this year by studying history and geography of Egypt and the River Nile. Oh, goody, cried all the children. So history is about things that happened long ago, and then geography of Egypt is kind of like the land. They're going to study the mountains and the rivers and the oceans that surround and that are a part of Egypt. That might be helpful because this is where they live, so they're going to learn more about that. What did you learn today, Bill asked Mama. We learned all about the River Nile, Mama, said Bill. It's nice to learn about your own hometown, said Mama. And that is the Nile by Bill. And so he painted a picture of the Nile, and he painted a picture of his house. And there are those hearts again. His mother just loves him. On Tuesday, Miss Ibis told the class about the Sphinx. The Sphinx is a huge monument that's right near huge pyramids. They are enormous that the Egyptians built so many years ago. Today we learned about the Sphinx, Mama said Bill. You mean Sphinx, Bill, said Pete. And boy, is it weird looking. Yeah, it kind of looks like a lion and a person, but it supposedly protects the pyramids. Okay. On Wednesday, Ms. Ibis told the class all about pharaohs, the pyramids, and mummies. So the pharaohs were the kings of Egypt, and queens. There were queens too. And they ruled the kingdom. And when people died, they would wrap them up like a mummy, and they would put them in these special places called a sarcophagus. Okay, they're containers, but they were beautifully painted, and the pharaohs built the pyramids so they could be buried there with all of their riches, said Miss Ibis. When they died, they were wrapped in long strips of cloth and called mummies. The mummies was put in a beautiful case called a sarcophagus. So the pyramids were where all of the pharaohs were buried, and they would put the pharaohs in there, wrap them like a mummy, put them in the sarcophagus, and then they would put lots of jewels and even furniture in there. The pyramids were very big. What did you learn today, Bill? Said Mama. Oh, Mama, we learned about the pharaohs and the pyramids, said Bill. We learned about mummies and esophaguses. And she said, you mean sarcophaguses, said Pete. Oh, how exciting, said Mama. Esophagus is part of your throat. But he's getting some of these words confused. That's kind of funny. I think you can tell that Tomie Depaola puts a little humor in his stories. On Thursday, Ms. Ibis told the class about the sacred eye of Isis. It is the most valuable jewel in all the world, said Ms. Ibis. So it's a very valuable jewel, okay, like a diamond or an emerald. Oh, said all the little crocodiles. But she added, there is a saying that whoever owns it has bad luck. Oh, said all the little crocodiles. And so you can tell that they're saying that. That is why it is kept in the Royal Museum, said Ms. Ibis. Now, how would you like to see the Sphinx, the pyramids, and the sacred eye of Isis? Oh, yes, said the little crocodiles. Well, tomorrow we are going to take a class trip down the Nile. Hooray, they all shouted. So they're going to go on a little field trip. Do you have your lunchbox? Asked Mama. Yes, Mama, said Bill. Now, Pete, don't forget to brush Bill's teeth, said Mama. I won't, said Pete. I have a good time and listen to Miss Ibis and do what she says, said Mama. Goodbye, Mama, said Bill and Pete. So off they go. They're going to go on their field trip. Does everyone have their partners? Miss Ibis asked. Yes, Miss Ibis. Then swim. Then swim. Now, which one do you think is Bill and Pete? See? Pete's a little bit darker pink, right? Do you remember that from the front of the book and all the other pictures? Ooh, said the little crocodiles. There's the Grand Hotel. Look at that. Ooh, said all the little crocodiles. There's the Sphinx. There it is. And he's using those speech bubbles again, and he's framing his pictures again. Bill, said Pete, look at that man in the big car with all the ladies. He must be a pharaoh, said Bill. Watch out for the bad guy, whispered an old crocodile to Bill and Pete as they swam by. Do you recognize that man right there from the other book? Stay in line, said Miss Ibis as the Nile Queen went by. The Nile Queen is the big boat. Ooh, said the little crocodiles. So they're enjoying this. Oh, now they're going to go to the pyramids. Here we are at the pyramids, said Miss Ibis as the class stepped ashore. That means they stepped out of the water and into the land. Shore means the land. Miss Ibis bought the tickets and they all went inside. The guide will hold a big mirror to help light up the passageway so we can see. Ms. Ibis explained to the class, now as I told you all, the mummies and all the riches are no longer kept here. They are in the Royal Museum, which we will visit next, and where we will see the sacred eye of Isis. Ooh, said all the little crocodiles. Now look at how Tomie Depaola made him look so far away. Do you notice that? He put him really small, and then he put these lines coming this way. And then he made other things look kind of closer, right? Like there, the Sphinx is far away. You'll see in a minute, you're going to see it's closer too. The class saw mummies and sarcophaguses and the sacred eye of Isis. There's that man again, Bill whispered. Pete, he sure looks familiar. That's the man that they saw when they were in the river. Look carefully. Do you remember that character? Then they sat down to eat lunch. Miss Ibis, may I be excused, please, said Bill. And he and Pete went inside to find a restroom to brush Bill's teeth. So they're going to go inside. Now look carefully. Think about this. There's the sacred eye of Isis. There's the big jewel. It's like a big diamond. Aha, look, Bill, said Pete. All of these people were really bad guys. They were dressed up like they were the women of the church, the nuns. And then, who is this in that disguise? I thought I recognized him. It's the bad guy from the Bill and Pete book. See, he had the sunglasses and the mustache. What do you think he's going to try to do? Do you think he's going to try to steal the jewel? Oh, Mr. Bad Guy, don't, cried Bill. You'll have bad luck. He's going to try to steal it. And then you know what he says to him? He says, shut up, you walking suitcase, yelled the bad guy. And he locked Bill inside a sarcophagus. He locked him in there. Why does he call him a walking suitcase? Remember how Bill was so afraid of becoming a suitcase? They kill the crocodiles and they take their skin and they make suitcases. He's calling him a walking suitcase. You can't do that to my friend, shouted Pete, and he flew into the restroom to get some toilet paper. Take that, said Pete, and he flew around and around, and presto, the bad guy was a mummy. Look at that. So again, Pete saved the day. And then Pete untied a guard who let Bill out of the sarcophagus. Where have you been, William Everett? Scolded Miss Ibis. Why, these two fine fellows saved the sacred eye of Isis from falling into evil hands, said the head of the museum. The bad guy is being taken to Cairo and put in jail. As a reward, we're going to send you home on the Nile Queen. So they let them take the Nile Queen, which is a huge, beautiful boat, home. And they all said, "Ooh," said all the little crocodiles. "Ooh." And so, Mama, that's what happened on our first class trip, said Bill. My goodness, said Mama, what an adventure. And Miss Ibis was right, said Bill. The Sacred Heart Eye of Isis does bring bad luck, especially to bad guys. So see, he tried to steal it and wasn't very lucky. Now he's in jail because he made a bad choice. Okay, so this is
All right, readers, wasn't that a fun Bill and Pete? Definitely different than the first one, but there are definitely some similarities to that text as well. So I want you to stop and think, what are some elements you noticed between Bill and Pete Go Down the Nile? And maybe what are some elements that you noticed between Bill and Pete, Stregonona, and any other Tomie Depaola book that we've read together or that you've read yourself? Stop and think about it. Write yourself a quick note. See if you can jot some ideas. Okay, readers, what are some elements that you noticed, that you thought of, and maybe you even wrote down that you've noticed between several Tomie Depaola books? Here are some things that I noticed. I noticed across all of his texts elements of humor. He loves to use humor, whether it's in the pictures, in the words, or in both. He writes in a way and he draws in a way that make us laugh. So we saw that just now when we read Bill and Pete Go Down the Nile. And we've also seen it when we read Stregonona at the very end of the text, when Big Anthony's belly is super full. We've also seen elements of humor in the last Bill and Pete, in some of his illustrations of the bad guy. Go! We've also seen humor. I've seen it in the Popcorn book by Tomie Depaola that I've read before. The boys, the twins, make popcorn, and it's way too much. Look how funny that picture is. Look how surprised he is. Another thing I've noticed is Tomie Depaola likes to frame his pictures. So another element of Tomie Depaola texts is that he likes to frame his pictures and make them look really clean. And so you see that in the Popcorn book. He has a pink frame around each picture. And we see that in Bill and Pete. He has a frame around each image or picture. And even in Stregonona, each picture has a very clear frame around it. Did you notice that? Another element I noticed is a theme of relationships. So I noticed a theme of relationships over and over of two or more people working together. So Bill and Pete being buddies, and the relationship Bill and Pete have with Miss Ibis, and the relationship Bill has with Mom. In the Popcorn book, there's this relationship between these cute twin brothers. You know, I have a little spot for twins. I have twins myself. And the relationship between Stregonona and Big Anthony. So I notice a theme of people who have a relationship together. It may be different kinds of relationships, but people who have a relationship. I notice that Tomie Depaola likes to use speech bubbles. He uses that in the introduction right away and throughout the entire Popcorn book. He likes to use speech bubbles with all of the alligators in Bill and Pete Go Down the Nile. So some other elements I noticed is that he likes to use the same characters across text. That helps you to make connections across text, and it helps you to become familiar with those characters. So then you can make really smart predictions of what they may or may not do since you start to know them as a character. I also noticed, like I said before we read the text, his use of very simple color. He doesn't use lots of color, and he also doesn't use really vibrant color. The pictures on this text are very vibrant, very bright. Tomie Depaola likes to use really kind of muted down tones. So that's something that makes me go, oh, that's recognizable. Because if I were to pick up this book and this text at the same time, and I was looking for a Tomie Depaola book, I could quickly recognize that this is Tomie Depaola based on the colors he chose, the simplicity of his pictures, and how the tones are kind of softer and more muted. So I think those are all of the elements that I noticed across Tomie Depaola books. If you notice something else, please let me know. I would love to find out. Now, why would we spend time talking about elements that we could notice across multiple texts? Well, like we just started to talk about, it helps you to become familiar with these characters, to start to get to know these characters, so you can make smart predictions about what they may or may not do next. And it's really fun because then you start to feel like you know them as people, even though they're not really people. Another reason is it helps you to quickly find them. If you're in a library or looking in a digital library, you can quickly recognize, oh, I love Tomie Depaola books, I want to read that one, right? So I want you to maybe see if you can go back through sometime this week, go reread your favorite author, go reread your favorite series, find books written by the same author. It could be books you have at home. Maybe you have a bunch of Dr. Seuss books. Maybe you have a bunch of Captain Underpants books. Or it could be books that you find online through Mac and Via or Epic. See if you can skim through or reread a favorite series or a favorite author and see if you could make your own circle map about the elements of that author. Now remember, this is not something you have to do. This is something that would be a great practice and a great option if you are up for the challenge and if you have the time to do it. If it's too much, please don't do it. It's just an idea and a suggestion because you already did this work right here with me. All right, readers, see what kind of elements you can notice that are recognizable across multiple books. Today, did you help me identify elements that make Tomie Depaola's books recognizable across multiple or several books for yourself? Yep, we did that together, Miss A. We nailed it. That was okay. Maybe I could practice. I don't quite understand. Wherever you are is fine. Do what you need to do to get some practice in. Can't wait to hear from you, readers. Have a great day. Bye.